We've already compared the overall aspects of both these devices, but now it's time to settle the debate on which of these phones have the better camera setup. This is Sandeep from RevWireless and you're watching the camera comparison between the OnePlus 6 and Honor 10. The OnePlus 6 sticks to the same setup as last year but with slight improvements. It has a primary 16 megapixel f1.7 camera with 1 by 2.6 inch sensor size, optical image stabilization, and 1.22 micron pixel size, as well as the secondary 20 megapixel f1.7 camera with 1 by 2.8 inch sensor size and 1 micron pixel size. The Honor 10 on the other hand goes for Huawei's favorite RGB plus monochrome combination, where the RGB sensor is a 16 megapixel f1.8 unit and the monochrome is a 24 megapixel unit with the same aperture. The native dynamic range is seemingly better on the OnePlus 6, most probably because it could be using the bigger sensor and the f1.7 lens also attributes to it. However, the white balance and color seem to be more natural on the Honor 10. Honor 10 also has better detailing while keeping noise at lower levels as well. The OnePlus 6 has a slightly wider field of view that'll come in handy for landscapes and architectural shots in particular. This time around, OnePlus seems to have removed the HQ option from the interface, but apparently is applying more clarity to the photos by default, which is what the HQ mode used to do. This is very apparent in the HDR mode especially, and while it gives the illusion of more detailing and sharpness, it can look a bit overdone at times as well. In fact, the HDR mode on the OnePlus 6 doesn't really improve dynamic range much. It just adds more contrast and clarity to the scene rather than gathering more information from shadows and highlights. The HDR mode on the Honor 10 is surprisingly more aggressive because in our review we observed that it actually wasn't as aggressive as some of the other models on the market, but in this case you can see the boosted shadows as well as the highlights being toned down compared to a regular photo. But the Honor 10 also has AI, which clearly combines the best of both worlds, and while the AI feature at times overdoes things, we find that it kept the highlights as it is and just boosted up the shadows, giving the best photo output among the three and even looks better than the OnePlus 6 output in my opinion. Coming to a low light performance, the Honor 10 manages to provide more sharpness and detail as well as holding on to information from the highlights better, while the OnePlus seems to have better details in the shadows. The Honor 10 manages to provide more sharpness and detail as well as holding on to information from the highlights better, while the OnePlus seems to have better details in the shadows. The OnePlus 6 shoots at a higher ISO even with a slower shutter speed, while the Honor 10's monochrome sensor allows it to shoot at faster shutter speeds with lower ISO levels and still get a similarly exposed frame. The need for such long exposure also leads to shaky frames such as this one on the OnePlus 6 despite having OIS. The shutter speed is the exact same on both photos, but you'll see the OnePlus opted for twice the ISO value despite having a brighter lens as well. The tendency to go for higher ISO values has been present since the first models of OnePlus and is still present on the OnePlus 6. You can also make use of the monochrome mode on the Honor 10 to capture images in low light that have lower noise levels, but since it's not in color, you may not always want to use it. When it comes to portrait mode, the Honor 10 allows you to choose between an aperture mode or a portrait mode. The portrait mode itself is subtle, but the aperture mode allows you to adjust the depth of field to mimic a variable aperture camera lens, and you can also change focus as well as the aperture value even after capturing the photo. Anywhere between f.95 to f16 is possible, but the sweet spot is around f2.4 to f4. OnePlus on the other hand has a single portrait mode that probably gives a blur somewhat between the portrait mode and aperture mode on the Honor 10. Between the two phones, it's hard to pick a clear winner. I prefer the blurring algorithm of the Honor 10 as it's more versatile and you can even alter it after the fact if you use the portrait mode. It also preserves more fine detail in the area in focus, while the OnePlus sort of mushes up the portion in focus. However, the OnePlus photos do have an advantage when it comes to a dynamic range in some conditions as well as having better white balance. This could perhaps give the OnePlus the advantage when looking at a glance, especially when it comes to a dynamic range, but the lack of detail in its portrait shots are evident when you pixel peep. The Honor 10 gives you 16 megapixel images, but the OnePlus 6 crops in ever so slightly and gives you an image that has 14 megapixels of resolution. There's also more visible noise on the OnePlus shots. The front-facing camera on the OnePlus 6 is a 16 megapixel f2 unit with 1 micron pixel size and 1 by 3 inch sensor size, while the Honor 10 has a 24 megapixel camera with the same f2 aperture. The Honor 10 front camera isn't that great. We have seen that in the camera review, and while the 5T had a great front-facing camera, it seems like OnePlus have gone a step backward due to the processing on this one. The images outputted seem very harsh in terms of processing, and there's quite a bit of artifacts that appear, especially when you zoom into the image. There's an HDR mode on the OnePlus 6 that helps when there are scenes with high contrast, but there isn't any HDR mode on the Honor 10. What the Honor 10 does have currently is a portrait mode, and one that works really well. Sadly, OnePlus has not released the front-facing camera portrait mode update yet, and we can't compare this at this point of time, but we'll do an update when that comes in the future. In terms of video, the OnePlus 6 allows you to capture up to 4K 30fps with EIS, while the Honor 10 can also match the resolution and frame rate but doesn't have EIS. EIS makes a huge difference to quality of videos as the shaky frame doesn't really speak much for the quality. EIS being a software aspect can be added to the Honor 10 later if needed, and they can at least provide up to 1080p considering that the Kirin 970 chipset powering the phone is the same one used in the P20 Pro, which supports 1080p with EIS. Additionally, Honor 10 provides 18:9 aspect ratio in 1080p and 60fps in 1080p. OnePlus 6 provides 16:9 aspect ratio videos only but has 4K 60fps. You also have the option of choosing H.265 format for the video on Honor 10, which offers the same quality videos at roughly half the size and bitrate, while you can offer traditional H.264 if you want. The front-facing camera maxes out at 1080p on both the devices, but only OnePlus 6 provides EIS. The Honor 10 output looks more natural and flatter, but the OnePlus 6 seems to add quite a bit of contrast into the mix. So this is the front-facing camera on the OnePlus 6 capturing 1080p video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall quality, the dynamic range, the sharpness, and how well it's actually picking up my voice in this scenario as well. So this is the front-facing camera on the Honor 10 capturing full HD video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the video quality, the dynamic range, and how well it's even picking up my voice in this scenario. Overall, it seems like the final judgment is same as last year with both these phones as well. Honor 10 is definitely better when it comes to photography with extra versatility coming from the AI mode as well as the dedicated monochrome and aperture modes. The OnePlus 6 on the other hand still remains great for video and would be an ideal tool for vloggers but falls short on the photography front yet again. We'll include purchase links in the description below. Thanks for watching this video. See you again in the next one.